right now because it's warm, because it's not in here. Jim MacDougald, CEO of Free Enterprise Nation from Tampa, is with us. Now, Jim, you have the 5 biggest economic threats to the United States. I think we could come up with a litany of them. 5 is probably being generous. The one, though, that jumps out at me is Social Security crisis. And in all this talk of deficit reduction and trying to stop spending, we don't hear about the problem that is Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We can't fund those.
Absolutely. We have a debt that they are only guessing at. The official government debt is $13 trillion, but when the policymakers and the think tanks look into it, they say, really, if you start throwing in the unfunded liabilities for Medicare and Social Security and some other entitlements, our debt or unfunded liability is really $107 trillion. That's quite a big difference.
Jim, when you talk about unionization, too, I'm very interested in this because, look, I personally believe, and I know lots of people out there would like to strangle me for saying this, it's not 1908 and we don't have sweatshops anymore. The need for unions is not as great as it used to be, and they're actually costing us a tremendous amount of money in the long run, yet it seems like the great majority of people out there around this country feel we don't need them, yet we still have them, and the administration wants them to even grow.
Yeah, it isn't just that they want them to grow. There's nothing wrong conceptually with the union if people want to form one. The problem that we have is that the president issued executive orders a year ago saying that if you're a contractor and you want to apply for a construction contract of $25 million or more from the federal government, the government can require that you and all of your subcontractors be unionized. That's true in states where there are virtually no unions. They're saying, if you don't unionize, we won't give you the contract. And that is a use of taxpayer dollars that is completely misguided, and we think we have to do everything we can to stop that.
Let's talk about the spending then, because that is one thing we do keep hearing about. We have to rein in the spending in order to cut down our deficit and save our kids and grandkids. Is that going to happen?
It has to happen. You know, the thing that nobody will talk about except in my organization is the fact that the cost of government is really the cost of the people that work in government. 10 years ago, the average federal government employee's compensation and benefits was 60% more than the average private sector comp and benefits. Today, 10 years later, it's 100% more than the average private sector. In the non-federal area, the compensation and benefits are 45% higher than the average in the private sector. The governments are taking money from the private sector and paying it to themselves, and it has got to come to a stop.
Jim, we're going to hear the President in the State of the Union address tonight. We seem to be heading down this populist road. And it didn't start last week, but it certainly gained a lot of steam and momentum last week. Can this be turned around in your mind? Will we be able to do it, we being the American people? Will it be by the next election? What's going to stop this?
It has to be the voter. The problem is the voters aren't informed because the federal government itself hasn't had an audited financial statement in 14 years. Our auditors are giving them qualified financial statements every year for the last 14 years. The government doesn't really even know how much it owes. The taxpayers have to get angry enough to require the government to disclose what the real debt is. When they can see it, then they can start voting for people who can take various elements of it and put it under control. But the biggest thing they have to do is they can't keep on spending $1.5 trillion a year more than they take in and expect that any of us can ever hope to be able to pay it back. They've just got to stop.
I mean, that's just like basic balance in your checkbook. We all do it at home. I'm not really sure why this government doesn't do it. You know, I asked our viewers what they thought the biggest threat to the economy was, and a lot of them are saying entitlements, that the entitlements have to stop too. And maybe that's something that we should be hearing from our president sometime soon.
I don't think we are going to hear that from the president soon, but yesterday you just had a Cato Institute person on before me. Chris Edwards at the Cato Institute just put a report out yesterday that we had finally passed the 2,000 mark. We now have 2,000 different entitlement programs in the federal government.
Holy heck.
You're right. The president has to, somebody has to say stop, but it doesn't appear that it's going to be this administration.
No, and especially not in an election year. It's not a popular thing to do.
How come I'm not getting an entitlement?
Well,
I get nothing.
I mean, they even talk about... Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think that you are going to get an entitlement. I think the current approach of government is to put everybody on the take so that everybody feels that somebody else will give them something, and he's going to try to extend that to as many people as possible. Hopefully, in their opinion, that will entitle them to your vote, and we certainly hope we can educate you to do otherwise.
Yes, seriously. Jim MacDougald, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Jim is, of course, CEO of the Free Enterprise Nation.
It's interesting.